Hey everybody, Dale Hannegan here, your friendly neighborhood radiology recruiter. As some of you know, we produce compensation data for medical imaging professionals every year. I think this is our 21st year of providing this information to medical imaging providers. And last week, we did release some content in the new report, which discusses the average wages being offered between January 24 and December 24. So I thought I would just take a few minutes and hit some of the highlights of this medical imaging review and address some of the questions that just commonly come up. So one thing that I do want most people to understand is that this is not a survey that goes out to imaging professionals. What we do, by contrast, is we'll take all of our data that we get from our human resources partners and our talent acquisition departments or our radiology directors who say, yeah, this is our average compensation. This is what we offer. This is the low, this is the median, and this is the high. We take all of that data, we put it into a spreadsheet, and that's the information that we use. What the ASRT does, say by example, or for example, they'll send out a survey to all of their members and say, hey, if you don't mind, fill this out and let us know what you made last year. And that may include information such as, shift differentials. It may include overtime. It may include holiday pay, and so forth. So we want that information to be separate. So what we really look for is the base wage. So we take all that information provided to us by our HR and talent acquisition departments, and that's the information that we use. Then we put the other information separate. So this review contains, most of the imaging modalities: X-ray, CT, MRI, nuclear medicine, and then of course also sonography, vascular, and echo, because many times that falls within medical imaging as well. We know sometimes it falls under cardiology or cardiopulmonary too, but we do track that because, again, we recruit sonography fairly often. This information, of course, as I said, does not include differentials, bonus, or overtime, etc. So I'm going to get into the wages here in a second, but also I want to talk about just the overall demeanor, if you will, of what we're hearing in medical imaging. There is a lot of negativity out there just based upon wages and being overworked and underappreciated and things like that. We do address that on page 5 and some of the comments that we've received. So take a look at that. We hope that it improves with the increase in wages over the next few years, and hopefully maybe schools will catch up and begin to produce more techs. We do know that ultrasound, that tends to be happening in ultrasound. A lot of the schools are producing sonographers now. And honestly, there's a lot of new graduates that are having trouble finding work out there in ultrasound. So we'll address that as well. But let's look at page 6 starting out. This is information from the ASRT. As many of you know, the ASRT publishes wages as well. So feel free to pull up their information. There's a link to the ASRT website and our report as well. But they, I believe they produce reports every 2 years. And this is information from them between 2022 and 2024. They are stating in their review that nuclear medicine was up 20% over the last 2 years. Vascular interventional technologists up over 13%. Sonography up 13%. MRI up 12.5%. CT and X-ray up just over 12%. And mammography up 11.5%. We're seeing similar wage increases as well, which is great for our industry. Now, we don't work for the ASRT, of course, so we're not exactly sure how they get that information, but we assume that we send it out and just let the imaging provider put in what they make. So that could be, for example, if they pulled up their W-2 and it said $100,000 and they're an X-ray tech, well, $100,000 is good money for an X-ray tech. And if you divide that out by the hourly rate, 2,080 hours a year is what usually HR uses. That comes out to about 40, I think $48 an hour. So that's pretty high for an X-ray tech if they're saying that they make $100,000 a year. However, if the ASRT report, if you look at that and they say the average is 73,274, if you divide that out by 2,080, that means that's an hourly rate of just over 35 an hour on the average. And that's pretty good for X-ray. If you're a new graduate, typically you're not going to start out that high, most likely in the low 20s per hour. And I think our average for radiography was about 32 something in an hour, which we'll get to here in a second. So that seems to be pretty comparable to what we're seeing out there too. So take a look at the ASRT data. Gives you just another benchmark to use as you're negotiating out there. And of course, you can take our information as well, the BLS information and so on. So let's skip down to page 7 there. You'll look at the offers made by experience. The vast majority, that we're seeing are experienced technologists that, which makes sense. If you're an employer looking to recruit people, you typically don't come to a recruiter and say, hey, send me somebody fresh out of school. But that is the reality of it. There's many organizations out there that are accepting new grads right now because that's what's available. A lot of the senior level people are staying put. So you can kind of see the offers made by years of experience there. But let's move down to page 8 on the ARRT specialties. And we can just hit the median there for most of these modalities. X-ray, as you'll see, $32.85 an hour is the average. CT, $45.80 an hour. MRI, $48.60 an hour. Mammography, $36.80 an hour. Continued down below there for nuclear medicine, $49.75. Interventional radiology, $46.80. And supervisors, $48.80. We did not do directors this year for the simple fact that we just didn't have the numbers to really support it. I think we did just over, it was like 20 or 21 director searches there. So I think if you need information on what imaging directors make, feel free to reach out to us. We have a pretty good idea, but we felt like we just didn't get the number of requisitions to include that this year. So one thing I do want to mention about when you're looking at these wages, many of our jobs, when we post them, we will put the starting pay is up to a certain amount. So let's take, CT, for example. If we put starting wages up to $65 an hour, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to make $65 an hour. All of this is largely based on years of experience, and that 65 is going to usually come in an area with a higher cost of living, perhaps like California or Massachusetts, for example, where they just pay more in these areas based upon taxes and cost of living and so forth. So if you do see pays up to $65 an hour and you have 3 years of experience, you're probably going to come in somewhere between that $31.50 and that $45 an hour range based upon that. So if you see that, just don't expect that that's how it works. I just want to bring that to most people's attention, because we do get people contacting us all the time and they'll say, hey, yeah, I see it pays $50 an hour, I'll take that. And we look at their resume and they've got 3 years of experience, and they're not going to come in anywhere near that, most likely. Moving down to the most requested specialty on page 9. This should come as no surprise, and this was the same last year. Vast majority, 56% of the requests that we got last year were for X-ray and CT. And MRI close behind at 22%. And then, of course, you can see the other modalities as well. So we always recommend, when we're asked by students, which way should we go? Well, if you want to stay, I don't want to say stay employed, but if you want a large number of options, then probably X-ray, CT, and MRI is where you should stay. If you start specializing in areas, say, for example, like mammography or interventional radiology, then chances are you're just not going to have as many job options to choose from. Now, you may make better pay. So say, for example, in nuclear medicine, yeah, it pays higher, but there are far less nuclear medicine jobs open than there are in X-ray and CT. And that's my point. Moving down to sonography, your median wage there, $44.70. That would be for general sonography, someone who's working at a hospital doing general, small parts, abdomen, OBGYN, and usually routine vascular studies as well. Vascular, $45.25, and cardiac, $44.50. And of course, you can see the high there. And then again, down the most requested specialties for sonography as well. 69% by far. If you want to stay employed in ultrasound, then become a generalist. Now, we understand there's many out there who enjoy just doing cardiac, or they just enjoy doing vascular. We don't want to say don't do that. I mean, clearly do that if that's something that you really enjoy doing and that's your passion. But just know, when you look at even, OBGYN, you just want to work in an OBGYN office, or if you just want to work in maternal fetal medicine, high risk, that type of thing, those jobs are far less available than if you're doing both general and vascular. So just want to make sure that that's clear. Of course, the BLS specialties, you can look up on the BLS website. I'm not going to cover those just for time's sake today because the content is just really limited there. And if you want to look at, the regional differences too, we do not break things down by state because most of our clients are concentrated in the southern United States. So we just don't do a lot of work in Washington and Oregon and Maine and some of those areas. So we kind of really prefer to look things on a regional basis because that does give us a pretty good idea of what people are making in a region versus just a specific state. And they'll give you a scenario of why we don't do that in the report there on page 12. Relocation and bonus incentives, that really has continued as it should. I think it's almost expected by providers these days that something be offered if you're asking them to move across the country and work for you and, uproot their family and so forth. But relocation incentives, there's no rhyme or reason to what's being offered out there. Most don't look, okay, you're in California and you're moving to Texas. It's going to be, $6,800 for us to relocate you there. There's really none of that going on. It's just, hey, this is what it is, and take it or leave it type of situation. Keep in mind that most of that is taxable as well. So if you're getting a $10,000 relocation incentive, that's going to turn in typically to about $7,000 fairly quickly being taxable. So always talk to your HR person about that. Moving down to page 14, you can see there our clients that are offering relocation only 31%, bonus only 21%, and offering both a bonus and relocation incentive 42%, and our clients offering nothing for you to get there about 6%. Those clients can struggle if they're not offering anything at all. That means they're typically looking at their local market to try to find providers. And unfortunately, that doesn't work very well because if they're only looking at their local market, then chances are if somebody's looking for a job, they already know that job exists because they've been online to see what's locally there and they're just not applying. So we encourage all of our clients to offer something just as an extra bonus to help them settle into their communities. Moving on down to repayment agreements. Clearly, just to sum that up, if you accept a bonus or a relocation package, you typically are going to have to sign a 1 or 2 year agreement for that money. They don't want you moving there, taking the job, and then after 3 weeks leaving and going to work for their competition when they paid you 20 grand to get there. So that's typically how all that works. Some agreements are longer than that. We typically try to push back, say, hey, that's not competitive. We have some of our clients that want a 4-year agreement. And I'm just like, that's just not very competitive. The travel sector, again, we are not a travel company. We do not offer travel assignments. We only offer full-time jobs. But there's a little bit of information there on the travel sector, and we do hear that it is slowing down quite a bit. So if you want more information on that, feel free to reach out. We can talk to you about that. But that's just based upon a poll that we conducted last year. And of course, we do talk to providers on a weekly basis who are traveling. They're coming off the road looking for permanent jobs. So we kind of hear what's going on out there. The whole work-life balance thing is a huge issue in medical imaging. Again, I won't go into that, but you can read that on your own. Economic conditions, things are improving. Obviously, inflation has come down over the last year or so. Thankfully, mortgage rates are coming down steadily. I don't know that they'll hit the 3-4% mark like we were just a few years ago, but they are coming down. The housing market is kind of stalled a little bit from what we hear. And since we do relocate a large number of our providers, this information is really, really important to us. I just look at my situation and I think, you know what, I'm sitting at 3.9% mortgage. My mortgage is half paid off. I've got a good price on my home. And so why do I want to leave that and move somewhere and pay double for a home and double interest rate? So it all makes sense to us as to why many institutions are having trouble recruiting, and it largely tied to that issue. So I don't want to encourage anybody to wait, because if you find your ideal job out there, don't pass that up. Because things aren't really going to improve significantly, I don't believe, over the next year or 2 or 3. So if you're waiting, you may find yourself in this same economy 2 or 3 years down the road, and you passed up on a good job. So if you find a good job, then by all means, jump on it, and don't let the economy dictate you making a move to find that ideal job. So again, please feel free to reach out to us. Clearly, we're a recruiting firm, so we'd love to work with you on jobs. If we can just be a resource to you for, even though we don't have a lot of data in some of the states, we do have data, some data in those states typically, and we also know what to expect in terms of, shift differentials and things like that. We didn't provide that here either for the differentials this year, because there just wasn't much changes in that specific area. We're trying to encourage some of our clients to go $15 and $20 differentials to fill these weekend roles. We get tons of weekend and night roles that just go unfilled by our clients because they don't want to pay a differential, or they want to pay, $2 or $3 an hour for somebody to work nights and weekends. And that's just not very attractive, as many of us know. But nonetheless, we do have a lot of information that we can share with you. So feel free to reach out to me or one of our other recruiting members here, and we're happy to just, give you the lay of the land, so to speak. As always, guys, thanks so much for listening. Reach out to us anytime. God bless you all, and have a beautiful day.